don't expect to see an Indian film to be a part of this festival. So let's start off with people who perhaps are not aware of the context in which the film is made. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Nigerian population or the larger African population in Delhi and what brings them to Delhi?
Yeah, I think it's a the African population overall in India is pretty sizable. The Nigerian population itself is a very dominant part of that, right? And I think one of the things that we wanted to talk about is the fact that Delhi was cosmopolitan, not today, but like even about 600 to 800 years ago, where there were people of different nationalities living in the city, and that has been a part of our culture, but we kind of forget it, and we probably become slightly more. Um, uh, we become ignorant of our history in some way. So yeah, just wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, and how did you meet your lead actor?
He actually moved to Delhi around that time, and he had done a very successful Malayali film down south called Sudani from Nigeria, which was a commercial hit in the region of Kerala. And I was speaking to a lot of people, a lot of actors who were based in and around Delhi. A lot of them were enamored by the whole, they love Bollywood, and which is why the whole Bollywood style of acting starts happening, right? So it wasn't working, right? Because they all wanted to be heroes rather than which is like the typical like Bollywood style. And then I met Samuel, and he kind of got it. Yeah.
You've traveled with the film. You've been to Europe. You've played the film in India, and then you're playing it in the US, right? And in all these three places, I think the question of race is seen differently among the audiences. How would you say your journey has been with the film?
So it's very interesting, right? So in the beginning, when I was talking to a lot of producers in India about about the film, and a lot of them would they talk to me about who your lead actor was. It's extremely important in India who your lead actor is. Like that kind of sets the tone for the entire project. And I'd be like, this so and so, he's done Sudani from Nigeria, Nigerian guy, and they'd laugh at me, and a lot of them would be like, dude, you're absolutely crazy to go ahead and make a film. Which is a Hindi film, which probably falls into the Bollywood category, because Bollywood, if you define it, is probably language is Hindi, right? So that is where a lot of them are like, dude, you're absolutely crazy. That you can't have a film that is led by a Nigerian actor, which is like a Bollywood film in that way, right? Then the next round of things started happening is I showed it to a couple of people when I'd done like a rough cut, and a lot of them were like, this is an interesting film, we were very entertained by it, but I'm not...
Let's put Shah Rukh Khan in blackface.
Yeah, Shah Rukh Khan in blackface, Dharmendra in blackface, and they were all like, dude, how, we don't know how we're going to sell this ahead. They were a little scared, in fact, because they're like, what gives you the right to talk about Nigerian man in this thing? I mean, you don't have the right to do so. And they were a little scared. And I was like, but that is what the entire thing is about, is that we're trying to talk about it from an Indian perspective, from the perspective of a city rather than a person, and where he becomes a symbol for any outsider in Indian society at this point of time, right? And this becomes politics of not just race, it becomes politics of color, politics of food, politics of religion, politics of all of the other good stuff, which we're all using nowadays, right? So, yeah, and that's been interesting.
And before I open it up, can you imagine this film being set in another city but Delhi?
I can imagine it in a lot of cities, but I think Delhi made perfect sense because it has a lot of historical baggage to it, and it's a city which has seen a lot of different kind of like the whole insider outsider debate is played out for centuries, right? It happened around independence. It happened before that when the Mughals came in. It happened way before that, before the earlier round of invasions happened. So it's always been about who belongs to Delhi, and I think that becomes really relevant when you start looking at any big city around the world.
Yeah,
right?
especially, I mean, when I was watching it, it was especially poignant because of the Citizenship Act that is being debated in India, and which is again bringing into question who gets to call themselves an Indian, who's an insider, who's an outsider. So you do, you call it a comedy, but you do such a good job of pulling all of those things together. So congratulations once again. Can we have questions from the audience?
So my name's Okeke. I'm an actor, and I grew up watching Bollywood and Nollywood films. And as I was watching this, I actually drew a lot of similarities between the two. And I was wondering if it was purposeful that you also kind of drew some connections from Nollywood films as well, specifically with the interactions between Mike and then his bosses in the drug dealer realm, but also with how I forgot his character friend, I forgot the name of the
Yeah.
Yes, how he was eating his food was very, very similar to how Africans eat, like our traditional like fufu and stew. So I was like, was that intentional as well to bring
No,
that?
it's actually very
aspect
cool that you see the Nollywood in it, because
Yeah.
when I started looking at a lot of the Nollywood serials, especially.
Yeah.
The Nollywood serials are exactly like the Indian.
And especially the
so-
wigs,
and,
the
Yeah.
jewelry.
and when you start looking at that, and a lot of people are like, are they acting like that because they need to? I'm like, no, that's basically like, no one's hamming it out there. That's
Yeah.
it's a great confluence of probably two of the biggest industries in terms of
Yeah.
scale and output, which is where it becomes very interesting. The fact that we haven't really had that interaction before.
Never. Yeah.
I think there was one movie called Namaste Wahala last year in Nigeria, which did fairly well. Again, it brings me back to the same question, which is like a lot of the people that I was auditioning for this guy's role, they thought that because this is a Hindi film, they thought it was like a quintessential Bollywood film, and they started sending me recordings of like songs. Right? Like, I don't want that, but but it's very interesting. Very interesting.
So can you, tied to that, can you tell us a little bit about the research process? Because this is a narrative film, but there's so many documentary, I would say, features or especially the voiceover. So I would really love to know how you played with the form.
So a lot of it is like that's great, because a lot of it, like you'll be well aware of. Try to show it a little bit in the snippets at the end during the end credits. A lot of the stuff is, even though it's kind of heightened into a very kind of almost overdone comic style, right? But it's very intentional in that way. But a lot of this stuff is, a lot of it is pulled from real incidents. There's a lot of people in the crew who really believed that these Nigerians would go ahead and then start eating a lot of the people. And we had to tell a lot of them to be like, dude, like, where are you coming from? It's a very well-formed urban legend in that way, right? That a certain tuk-tuk guy was driving, and he was asked to come upstairs, and then he was eaten up, etc. All of that. So there were a lot of attacks that happened in Delhi around that time.
And there were a lot of, one is that, and the other one was they're all drug dealers, so there were all these raids
Exactly.
that were happening.
Exactly, right? So even though it's based in and encoded in a form which is very like comic and very popular, a lot of the incidents are absolutely like that it's just reportage, right? And in a way it kind of serves me to be able to do it in a slightly more removed form rather than make it very realistic. But because the moment you start making it very realistic, you start pointing fingers. That's when people start getting they start asking, like, are you talking about me, are you talking about and it depends on what kind of a situation you're in as a country, as to what the form of expression should be, right? And so that is one. As far as the historical aspect of things go, I really like reading about the history of India, and this has been around for the longest time. The queen who's referenced in the film Raja Sultan, she's actually not. It was a great story, and like it happens with a lot of stories, things just like fall into place in a lot of ways. She's not only like so that angle, like she had a lover who was outside of her race was definitely a big thing, but she was also like the first democratically elected uh, leader or a head of state, because it was actually like the people who put her into power. You know, her mother did not want her to come into power. She is the first female head of state in India ever, right? So it kind of aligned in that way that it just made for a great story to. And then again, it's not a happy story. Like there's a lot of good stuff about it, but it ends up with him kind of like losing his head. Uh, I mean, it just makes for great, like the fact that you can move away into documentary in the middle of it and like talk about stuff that normally you'd have to watch a documentary for. A lot of people might not be open to it, but when we're looking at the masses in India, and I want it to be a popular film that the masses can watch and the masses can enjoy, because otherwise it doesn't work as a medium if only like a niche audience watches. So that's where it starts making sense, you know, where an average guy can watch it, you know, and learn about the stuff that is not there. Yeah.
I just want to say thank you. You did an extraordinary job in
Thank you.
bringing reality and truth to film. And you did an excellent job, because I had no idea Africans had come to India. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, thank you so
And
much.
I hope that this film gets to be shown not only at the African Film Festival, but other festivals as well.
Thank you so
Good
much.
luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for this very important film, and also for using it to platform the cities in India as well. And I was wondering if you have, if you could share with us if there is a community of filmmakers that you know in India that are trying to platform more African stories in India.
There's actually a community of filmmakers here in New York. People who reached out. There's two people from NYU Tisch who reached out to me, who are doing stories, and it was a great thing to hear that they kind of trying. They're working on similar stories, albeit in different genres and different forms, right? But I think it's a growing body of work which will kind of it'll take its form over the years. Yeah.
Thank you.
I went to NYU, and I don't have a film in the festival, but I've always had this question about independent film in India, because you can see Bollywood and the type of storytelling and the budgets and the cameras and all that, but then I've always wondered, what is the path of an independent filmmaker in India look like? And I'm just sort of curious about your trajectory.
I think at this point of time, it's a pretty bleak scenario for most independent filmmakers, because what happened during COVID is like there was a lot of content that was bought up by platforms, etc., and like they basically started losing money, and then they kind of tried to now they all want to revert back to the system of the 80s, which is like extremely star-driven cinema, and they have this idea which is like, you know, the more basic you make it, the more massy it becomes, which is incorrect. But I mean, there's always that battle to be fought, and I also feel that when we're looking to at a certain kind of independent cinema coming out of India, a lot of it is sort of, and this is where form becomes very important. A lot of it is not like quoted in the same kind of form that this is. So where a lot of people are afraid of it, of kind of taking it forward in terms of distribution, because they're like, people won't get it, right? And which is where sometimes you have to kind of figure out what is cinema that people can get, right? And then try and, like, it becomes a little harder, but then what is cinema that people can get, and then you infuse meaning into it. So that's the challenge. At this point of time, what we're going for is that we're going for a theatrical release in India, where if we find the right marketing mix And we're very confident of the fact because we've kind of seen the response. The film opened in Mumbai, and we had 5 screenings there, and we had 5 full houses where average people off the road came and started like filling up the theaters. We're not talking about the cinephiles and the super educated bunch. In fact, those guys, a lot of them wanted to abandon the film because they're like, it's too crass and too like normal to be in a festival, so to speak, right? And that's a whole different angle to the politics. But we're very confident of the fact that we want to kind of go in and we want to get a chance to actually showcase it to the masses, right? Where we feel it could work. Yeah.
I'm not sure this is actually going to be a question. I just need to let you know how incredibly proud I am of you.
Charles is my professor from college. He's put me through a lot of like
What you all don't know about this man is that when he came to graduate school, he was in the management track, the brand management track. And what's fascinating about seeing his film and listening to him talk about it is that he's proven that, I guess in some ways, maybe I suspected, but probably had no real idea at the time, that he transcends so many aspects of what the school was. He is a brand manager in that he's created a product. He's a writer in that he wrote it. He's an art director and directed it. I thought the film was beautiful. And he's a strategist, and how you talk about the film reflects all the depth and layers of the work that you used to put in. It's tremendously rigorous, and I'm just so proud of you and happy for you.
Thank you so much.
But I will ask the question. Is this a commentary on your graduate education? Is there any relationship between the MBA?
There's only one, and it's a really funny it's a funny incident, but I don't know how it connects up to anything. But it was very important in the whole process. So while I was working with DDB in the middle, when I was in San Francisco for a bit, one day I told some of you the story. I was sitting at a bus stop, and I was waiting for a bus probably, and there were 2 African American gentlemen sitting next to me, and they've been laughing for quite a while. And I was like, what's happening? Why are you laughing? And they were like, where are you from? And I was like, India. And they started laughing even more, and they were like, damn, my Indian brother, you're blacker than we are. And I was like, what does that mean? Because all this while I was, you're supposed to be sensitive about, you know, the words and what that means in this country at least, right? Because very different to what it means in India. So that, yeah, I think that was one of the key. Yeah.
You know, when we look at the Black Lives Matter movement and we look at South Asian African American solidarity, there are such few films that speak to that. And I think when we were looking to screen a small festival around the time of George Floyd's murder, Mississippi Masala, which was made before I was born, was literally the only film that we could find.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we have another film to show, which shows this very rich history of solidarity that goes back. Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us. Have a good night.
Thank you so much.